This is the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra. And this is the phone that I've been using for the last month. That's right, it's the same damn phone because I've been daily driving the S23 Ultra ever since it released 2 months ago. But you don't care about that. You want me to tell you whether or not it's worth it and to share my honest experience with the device after carrying it with me all of this time. But before we do, a like and a sub to the channel is always appreciated. We're creeping ever so close to 20,000 subscribers on this channel, and none of that would be possible without any of you, so thank you. Anyways, the S23 Ultra for me had some pretty big shoes to fill, as the Samsung device I had previously as a companion to my iPhone was the Z Fold 4. Not to mention how notable and special the S22 Ultra was. Let's just say there's a lot of things that this phone had to do to win me over. Early on, before I had the phone in my hands, I was excited but also disappointed knowing that Samsung chose not to overhaul this phone completely, which made it feel a little older and less exciting. Though I really couldn't have been any more wrong, because in a day-to-day scenario, carrying this phone around as my one and only daily driver, it has not only been super smooth and snappy, but also very reliable and consistent. And I think this is where the S23 Ultra really needs to excel compared to every other smartphone because of that $1,200 price tag. So does it? Simply put, yes, it does, but we're gonna have to dive a little bit deeper. One of the big upgrades from the S22 Ultra moving over to the S23 Ultra is that you're going from an 8 Gen 1 to an 8 Gen 2 SoC from Snapdragon. And let me be clear, this is not a small difference. Everything from the efficiency and thermal performance of the device has been improved, as well as the overall performance and snappiness you feel when navigating the phone, especially when you're really pushing it. The reason this is a big deal to me is because when it comes to a smartphone, I want it to work and do what I need to do without feeling like I have any constraints, like the battery, for example, which we'll get to later. This is one of the main reasons I used my iPhone as a daily driver. Aside from lacking the customization and things that I personally look for in a smartphone, the iPhone has always been pretty reliable. But the S23 Ultra changed that, and it changed the way I view Samsung devices entirely now, because the performance and efficiency have really caught up. Because the difference between these two phones is that one of them is able to better utilize the power versus the other. A good example of this is the 8K recording capabilities of the S23 Ultra, which at first I thought was a complete gimmick, but after messing around with it, what I've come to realize is how powerful of a tool this could actually be. Not only is it no longer limited to 24 FPS like the previous phones by allowing you to shoot up to 30 frames per second, but it's clean and sharp footage that I'd perfectly be happy using in one of these videos. What makes it even better though is the phone's image capability. With a 1x, a 3x, and a 10x periscope zoom lens, it also has a macro and an ultra wide, which I don't use too often, but they're all really solid cameras. I always say I'm no photographer, so when I take an image with my phones, it's pretty much always point and shoot, and if it can deliver under those circumstances, I'm really happy with that. It does help that the main 1x lens is a 200 megapixel sensor that's binning down to make 16 pixel groupings for a 12 megapixel image when shooting in auto. It allows for more light and in turn creates a more shallow depth of field. But my favorite trick with the camera by far is the ability to zoom up to 100 times digitally. I'll admit it's not the cleanest image, but name another phone on the market that's actually able to do that. I will say though, the 3x and the 10x telephoto lenses are amazing, and the amount of detail they retain is just spectacular, which is why I believe this phone has one of the most complete and unique camera setups compared to any other device you can currently buy. Let's stop talking about the camera though, because that's not all this phone has to offer. For that $1,200, you're getting a really premium feeling build made out of a polished aluminum that's sandwiched between two large slabs of glass, a matte frosted finish for the back, and a raw Gorilla Glass Victus 2 for the display. It makes holding the device feel like you have something substantial, though because it's larger with a 6.8-inch display, that weight is distributed so well that it feels lighter than something like the 14 Pro Max, despite being ever so close in weight. The in-hand feel is nice, and honestly I wish I had the balls to use this thing without a case, because it's so much friendlier and easier to navigate thanks to the rounded edges, which is something that I can't say about my previous iPhone. Though it's when you turn on the display that you really see where the phone comes to life. Its 120Hz LTPO Super AMOLED display boasts an HDR peak brightness of up to 1750 nits, which makes watching any sort of content on this thing just a different experience. What's nice is that Samsung didn't feel the need to make the punch hole camera any larger or add any gimmicks to it, so we all got a relatively uninterrupted display, and it being square versus having round edges means that no matter what you watch, you're getting relatively the full picture. I love this display for gaming. It's fluid, responsive, and it being large makes playing games like Call of Duty Mobile just a lot more immersive and fun. And like I said before, the performance doesn't hinder that experience at all. Since we're talking about media consumption though, the S23 Ultra has bottom firing speakers as well as an earpiece speaker, which does allow for Dolby Atmos supported stereo audio. And I have to say, I was actually really impressed with the S23 Ultra's sound quality. This is something that I've always felt like had been lacking from certain Samsung devices, and I'm just really glad to see that this phone has not only caught up, but actually exceeded my expectations. It's loud enough that I'm able to actually use it in the shower if I wanted to, and it sounds good enough that I don't feel like I have to reach for my buds too every time I want to listen to something. I don't really have a way of showing this to you, so you're just gonna have to take my word for it. There's a lot about this phone that I've already covered in previous videos, so I don't want to repeat myself a ton here, but there's a handful of things I do on this phone that really increase my workflow or benefit me as a consumer or a creator that I'd like to share. I like the fact that with One UI 5, I'm able to easily customize my app icons using Theme Park or find user themes to reskin my entire device. I'm a huge fan of making my phone my own, and this really helps me do that, and it's something that I honestly just wish I could do on the iPhone. I also like how, with using Good Lock, I'm able to completely change how I want my lock screen, where I want my clock, and what kind of apps I want displayed, and more. It's just super convenient. I've even changed the double tap feature on my side key to bring up Google Wallet, but you could do it with any app that you'd like. I'm also a really big fan of the S Pen because it has so many use cases for me, like being able to quickly annotate a screenshot to hide something important, or personal information if I'm sharing it. I also like that I can not only just use it to take a quick note, but I'm actually able to use this thing as a remote shutter so that I could take a photo of myself for a thumbnail if I really need to. Lastly though, one thing I'm a huge fan of is multitasking. I have it set up with a 2-finger swipe, so it's easy to bring up 2 different apps like YouTube and Twitter, for example. This is something that maybe not a lot of people would care to use, but it's nice to have, and I won't complain about extra features. But I said we'd talk about the battery, and honestly, I want to take a different approach to this, because I can tell you how I can get 9 hours to 10.5 hours of screen on time, but it really doesn't give you the full picture for how well this phone can actually handle that stress and that battery load. I'm terrible at charging my devices despite having a ton of chargers around. For the most part, I forget to plug my phone in or throw it on my wireless charger when I go to sleep. This phone could easily get me 2.5 days of realistic usage, like social media, emails, content consumption, some gaming, consecutively, albeit I do have the always on display disabled and I am using light mode, which doesn't impact performance whatsoever, but the battery has been amazing. And if you've been watching for a while, you'll know that one of the biggest problems that I had with the S22 Ultra, despite me thinking that it was pretty much the perfect device, was the battery life. But as a package, the S23 Ultra has not disappointed and it's here to stay. I'm a huge fan of this device and I'm really looking forward to see what Samsung is doing with their foldables now that we have an amazing SoC, speakers, and other tech packed into these devices. Anyways, that's been it. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, a like and a sub to the channel is always appreciated. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.